Today, we've got some pretty big tasks ahead of us, and both involve the spire that we built in the last episode. The first thing that we're going to need to focus on is a mixture of gunpowder and also sugarcane. So I think we're going to do that through various levels in this tower. I'm not entirely sure yet, but we do have most of the build height area here to work with, so it shouldn't really be an issue of space, and more so just how we use that space on the inside. And then, of course, the other thing that we need to do is connect the spire to the mainland. Of course, right now there's no way to get in unless we swim all the way over there, and even then it's all kind of blocked off from there, so we'll need to figure out a couple of things. The first of which is that we are going to connect a bridge to the doorway, which is just out of view over here to the left side of the structure. We're going to have a bridge that goes all the way across the water and eventually connects to the shoreline way over on that side. And the reason that we're going to connect it way over there as opposed to anywhere over here is that I felt like with the style of bridge that we're about to go for, it worked a lot better if it just kind of shot off into the distance in more of a straight line rather than if we tried to curve it around or give it any angles or anything like that. A big thing that that does is it's going to fill this area right here. When we're looking out in this direction towards the Ascendant Spire from much of where anything is going to be built in this region, you're going to be able to see not only the spire itself taking up much of the view, but the bridge that connects it as it dissipates off into the fog and that shoreline over yonder. What it also will do is help draw your eye to the fact that there is a river outletting into the ocean right here, and then you can follow that river inland as we go. Over time, we'll of course fix the river down there, we'll expand it onward, and we might even have it tie into some more things further inland. But I think the bridge connecting to the spire in this area will be a great way to start to tie this entire region together and really give us a good baseline to work off of once we start putting some other builds around this area as well. So we've got a couple really important things that we want to get to. I'm struggling for rockets, so the creeper farm is going to be a huge element of it, but I don't want to do that until we can get this thing connected and get that build in place. I think once we do that, we'll be setting ourselves up nicely to really get down to some of the technical stuff on the inside of our spire here. So let's not waste any more time. Let's get a bridge in place. I want to make sure that I take the time to go over a couple of the details that we're using in the building here. I've heard some feedback from a fair few of you guys that you'd like to see a little bit more of what goes into these builds and some of the details that we use within them. That's something that we did really good in the first couple of episodes, but I've kind of moved away from a little bit unintentionally, and so I want to try to get back to that. Starting with the details that you can notice right here underwater. We're building much of the bridge out of the same block palette that we used to build the Ascendant Spire in the previous episode. That being said, there are areas where we need to change it up a little bit. Of course, we're going to have shading like we did in the tower and some of our other builds so far in this world, but more specifically once you start interacting with water. So what I wanted to do was get a palette of shading for specifically in the water, and that palette looks a lot like the normal shading, just on a little bit of a larger scale and with the implementation of some mossy cobble. We just transition from our normal palette into mossy cobble, and we kind of give it a varied and different look so that it's not too much of the same thing going on. And then we transition that into tuff, acacia logs, basalt, and finally deep slate tile at its darkest. What that's going to do is ever so subtly just change the look of the parts of the structure that are underwater versus those that are above the water. But it's something that's still ever so slightly noticeable, and if you start playing around with some clearer water or even shaders, you'll notice it even more. That's something that you might not notice a ton with how strong vanilla Minecraft water tends to be. The next thing that I want to bring some attention to are these large windows that I have towards the base of the structure. This is probably one of my favorite details to play with in areas that we can at least make it work, and that's the multi-layered window effect. So as you can see with the close-up shot right here, we're actually using a total of 3 entire layers to make these windows happen. We've got the outer layer, which is mostly just air blocks surrounded by the foundation of the build itself, the usual block palette, and the opening of the window. Up towards the top, we've got a couple of walls and stairs just to kind of help sell that archway. And then on the next layer in the middle, it's also mostly air blocks, but this is where it gets a little more interesting. I've used one line of mixed tough walls all the way up into a little archway using tough bricks and normal tough blocks as well to create the secondary layer of shapes within the window, these 2 archways that are kind of split on either side of the main big archway. And finally, on that 3rd layer, we've got the basalt. Now, the purpose that the basalt serves is just to make it look like it's dark in the interior of this building. One thing that we kind of lose out on in Minecraft is when you're looking through the window of a structure, you can't really quite get the lighting on the inside to do what you want it to, at least in comparison to maybe real-world examples or examples from other games. The interior we want to feel very dark and ominous and like you can't really see into it the same way you could see out of it. And a good way to do that is to use colored blocks behind these windows to artificially create that effect. Now, one thing that you've seen me do a lot is use things like deep slate tiles. We did that in the Spire, but in this structure specifically, I tried deep slate tile and it wasn't quite working, at least for these windows. I think a big part of that is how big these windows are relative to the structure itself. These take up so much of the space that we have on this cube that the dark gray, almost black color of the deep slate tile was almost overpowering. So I decided to switch that to basalt, which we do also use in some of our other shading on the exterior to create a ever so slightly lighter yet still dark, especially from far away effect, much like the approach we're taking with most everything that we're building in this world, at least in the early days of it. Overall, the multi-layered window effect is something that can work really, really well, but do be careful because it does narrow down how much space you have on the inside. So if you plan on putting some interiors in a building or having some walkable space, just know that if you're doing this with windows, it can get out of control really, really quickly. That is the most important part of the bridge that we're going to be building here. I think I've hinted at it before, but I wanted the bridge to connect to a structure other than the spire itself somewhere along the way across the water. And the reason I did that is mostly just for this enhanced effect to add something that draws your eye a little bit more than just having the bridge fill the space here. Something that it can kind of connect to as a larger supporting piece and have it transition from where it might connect to the land to the part that strictly covers the water all the way on the run up to the main building. And I think what we've put together serves that purpose pretty well. I didn't want it to be too big. I didn't want it to take your eye away from what we have going on here, but instead just be a nice complementary piece to the bigger picture. You can faintly see right here where I have this doorway laid out. This is going to be where the main bridge connects, and that's why this wall right here is pretty flat. It's all going to be filled in by how the bridge ends up looking, and that of course is going to stretch all the way up to the front door of the spire, which is just around this corner. That part did take a lot of materials as is, but over here I've taken to reusing some of what we had set up for the Ascendant Spire itself, and I've got a good amount of materials laid out for the main bridge, which we can get to building pretty quickly here so that we can move on to the next part, which involves a little bit of redstone. As I put together the length of the bridge here that sprawls to the spire itself, I decided a really good tactic would be to use the shading on the actual walkable path itself. And I did that in a particular manner. I used the darkest blocks on the outer edge, that kind of tough brick and acacia bark sort of texture and color pattern. And what I was trying to do with that was represent some of the dirtier, lesser traveled areas of the pathway. A lot of the time, people like to default to making the walked part of the path the messiest or dirtiest, and that can make sense in like terrain and dirt paths and that sort of thing, but at least for this style right here, where we've got this stone base and very like man-made sort of area or walkable surface, it felt like the stone or the rocks would be almost more polished in a way. Like all of the dirt that would be there would be kicked up and kind of brushed off to the side from the foot traffic. At least that was what made sense in my head. So what I did was I went darker on the outer sides and then I went lighter on the inside. So we transitioned from tough bricks to that acacia bark into a mix of cobblestone and regular tough, which is just a little bit lighter. And then from there, on the main sort of walked surface as you meander all the way down the bridge, we've got a combination of stone bricks and polished andesite. And as the top of it gets finished here, it makes itself a little bit more apparent. You can kind of see the areas that are traveled upon a little more frequently, as well as the areas that aren't really touched that much, where a lot of this dirt and grime can sort of gather completely undisturbed. We did it! We connected the spire, bridge is done, end of episode. I'm just kidding. We haven't even gotten to the best part. It's time for redstone. Well, it shouldn't actually involve that much redstone. We just need to set up a creeper farm in here and then a little bit of a sugarcane contraption. I think that'll be where most of the redstone is, but I think the creeper part will probably be pretty simple. I know there's a bunch of different ways that you can do creeper farms in the game, and I've seen a wide range of them, from using cats to using water on a timer to even some attempts at using snow golems and such. But I think the method of choice for our creeper farm in the Ascendant Spire is probably going to be a traditional water on a timer sort of setup. So that'll pretty much consist of however many platforms we put together. We'll wire up a little bit of a timer with some observers and dispensers kind of going up in a chain, and then every time that goes off, it'll, dispense water, push creepers off the edge, and then get picked back up, creepers spawn, rinse and repeat. Pretty simple design. And I don't imagine there's very many ways to mess that kind of thing up. It seems pretty simple, and there's not a lot of redstone involved, so what's the worst that can happen? I suppose there is the whole matter that I don't know how many platforms to build or how big to build the platforms, but I do know that I've got to put either trapdoors in there or like glass pillars to prevent spiders from spawning, and I also know that creepers can die on campfires with hoppers underneath them. At least I've set up other creeper farms like that based on other people's designs, so surely we'll use that in our design, whatever we come up with. I think the more interesting part is going to be all of the sugarcane that we try to figure out inside of here as well. And we've also got some auto crafting that I want to tie into the system. So we farm some sugarcane, we farm some gunpowder, and then we have it all go into some auto crafters and craft up the rockets for us in this universal output. But another thing I want to make sure we do is also output a little bit of gunpowder itself and even sugarcane itself, some that doesn't get sent to the autocrafter. So we'll have to figure out a way to have each go into different sides. Not all into autocrafters, but like some into autocrafters and some into the other sides. You get the idea. Like I said, What's the worst that could happen? All right, so we're inside the spire. I've got a little bit of a setup over here to the side where we've got, you know, things that we might use. And then, of course, the redstone shulker that we set up previously. And I'm hoping this would be everything that we might need, at least for most of what we're going to build here. And I'm thinking what we're going to do is use a bunch of the stone here for our platforms. I'm probably going to go ahead and go towards the center of the spire here for where we do the creeper farm. And then from here, I'll try to raise it up high enough that we can do a collection system and maybe some auto crafting that combines with all of the sugarcane that comes in. And I'm honestly thinking, like, with us wanting to do both types of farms around here, I might try to set it up in a way that we have the creeper farm in the middle. And then around the outer edges of the creeper farm, we have like a sugarcane setup that kind of acts as the walls of the creeper farm. That might be crazy. Maybe it's not all combined into one, but, you know, wrap the sugarcane around the edges and then have the creeper farm in the middle or something like that. And then, of course, we'll want a gap to where we can go put ourselves way up at the top when we need to gather some gunpowder or just let the sugarcane farm run. We can just kind of sit up there and let it do its thing. So we'll probably have it towards the bottom of the tower here, and that's also where we have the most room, so that should work. I've got a platform set up a little bit up in the air with our little catch system down there with the campfires, a couple hoppers down below just to kind of act as the bottom of this farm, and we'll kind of work our way up. So I'm thinking we'll have the first platform here. We're like 5 or 7 blocks above that down there. I think that should be fine. And I think the scale of what we do here is pretty much just going to be determined by how far water can flow. And I want to say off the top of my head, it's like 7, maybe 8 blocks. So what I'm going to do here is try, I guess, 8 to begin with out in each direction, and then make like a diamond shape out of it, connecting it on the corners, with the idea that the water would be poured right here where the torch is, and we would want it to go all the way to the edges without flowing over. So let's see how that looks. Platform built, I've moved the torches along to the edges so that you could see a little bit better. We're gonna go ahead and place our water right here in the middle, and I'm in third person so we can see this a little bit better. Hopefully we don't flood everything down below. Okay, so 8 blocks was good. That was the safe bet. Looks like we can go down to 7. We'll just trim this one layer out from all of the edges over here, and once we do that, the water will cover the entire platform. From there, we know we have this scale good, and we can build multiple platforms going up. All right, the edges have been shrunk down, and one thing we do still need to figure out as we go up is the combination of observer and dispenser for our water output. Now, we know we want the water to output onto this block right here, which means we want the dispenser to be facing downward, and I think we can do that by, nope, I need to place it upside down. So if I just get some blocks there temporarily, and then I do that, we have our dispenser facing downwards. So now, when it triggers, you can see the hole of the dispenser right there. It'll dispense right here in the middle, and we'll be good. And then from there, we just need an observer to power it facing up, and this is gonna kind of link into the other signals. This is the creeper farm that I've built the most frequently. I couldn't tell you who initially designed it like this. All I know is that we can chain these together going all the way up to the top, and the top floor will set off the next floor, which sets off the next floor, all the way down to the bottom, and that's how the water will toggle, whether it's dispensing it or picking it back up. Either way, we want the observer to be facing up, so this time we also need another block up above. We do that, and now we can use this as a bit of an example. So the floor is going to be in line with the observer right here. The next floor, we're going to have some trapdoors down here to lower the height just a little bit so that creepers can spawn, but not other stuff. And what's going to happen is when the water above this floor gets dispensed, it's going to tell the observer that that happened, and that is going to dispense this floor. Or when it's doing the other part of the cycle, it will instead pick up the water instead of dispensing it. So all we've got to do is repeat this process for as many floors as we feel like building, and I honestly have no idea what number of floors to go for. I don't know anything about the distance and spawning and anything like that, but 10 floors feels like a good number, so surely we just go with 10 and call it good? I wouldn't imagine it's too little. If anything, maybe it's a few too many, but either way, it should work. Oh, I almost forgot. We've also got to do the glass pillars to prevent the spiders from spawning. And you know what? We could do glass pillars. Maybe carpet would also work. Wait. Don't yell at me. Don't yell at me. Carpet's water. I know. I got it. It clicked. Don't yell. Stop typing. Stop it. We just need to do it in a pattern that spiders don't spawn. And if I'm not mistaken, spiders can spawn in any open 2x2 space. So we need to figure out a pattern that gets rid of any uninterrupted 2x2 squares, and I'm not exactly sure how to do that, but I'm gonna rack my brain for the next 2 hours straight and come up with something. Also, I resorted to looking it up. It's any 3x1x3 space, which does make this a little bit easier. I am, however, a little bit concerned about having glass pillars here with water flow, because the water will flow into the glass and then not past it. So surely that would mean that there would be mobs that just wouldn't fall when that happens because the water wouldn't push them all the way. And whatever the case, we're building it, so it'll work perfectly. Okay, I think I have something that should do the trick. Now, it's a little complicated. It's a little weird. Bear with me here, though. I think where we have the glass pillars should work. I was looking for any 3x1x3 spaces except for the middle, which maybe is an exception, mostly because we're gonna always have water going and not going, and there's also this block, which is kind of up here. I don't know, the wiki said something about no full solid block above it, the spawning spot, so maybe that would stop it. Either way, I just kind of set this glass out in a pattern where I kind of went like 1, 2, and then like a little to the side. I felt like if it was straight on from the dispenser at any point, it might really block the flow of water. But this way, it would kind of help the flow continue to do its thing all the way to the edges. So I just went 1, 2 into the side, and 1, 2 into the side, and 1, 2 into the side. And then from these glass blocks right here, I kind of did the same thing, but an extra block to kind of get this pattern that I could repeat. So 2 blocks, and then, you know, on the diagonal, 2 blocks, and then on the diagonal. You kind of get the idea. That did leave us with some close calls on the corners, to which I am guessing if I just put some glass on the edges, just nothing will spawn there. So like this won't spawn creepers either, but at least it won't spawn spiders. It's not necessarily that these were 3x3 areas. There is 1 on each side, but this extra piece of glass, it was close. It was like 3x3 minus 1 corner, so I didn't trust it. So I just threw an extra glass in there in case, just to be safe. At the end of the day, it's not the biggest deal if spiders are caught in the system here and it's a spider and creeper farm, but if we can keep it to creepers just to make it a little more effective, all the better. So I think we've got the tileable platform design at this point. We just need to throw some trapdoors up here, and what this does is make the room a little shorter than 2 blocks so that we don't get skeletons and zombies and all of those sorts of things, because we just want creepers. I think we are now ready to replicate this all the way up, and just to show you real quick that the water does work around all of these pillars, it does go all the way to the edges, and I haven't tested my theory as to, you know, if I blocked a straight line right here, would it prevent it, but I guess I won't need to. Looks like we got something that works. All right, we're at the top of the farm. I've got 10 layers in place, fully done, and boy, did it take a lot of trapdoors. The next thing we need to worry about is what is right behind me. We've got to figure out how to power this and get it on a timer. So as far as I'm aware, it can be a pretty simple, like, just loop it through a bunch of repeaters or something. I don't know how long we want it to run. We'll just kind of have to eyeball it and see how long the water lasts for before it gets picked up and then goes again. We'll probably just eyeball it and go with whatever feels good. But in terms of being able to turn it on or off, that might be where I run into a little bit of a problem. I'm imagining I can probably just hook the signal up to a block that, if powered with like a lever or so, will allow the signal to continue to cycle through. Sounds easy on paper. I probably will struggle to do that, but let me see what I can manage. All right, I've come up with something that is pretty simple and seems to do the trick. I basically just borrowed what I had found on the sheep farm with redstone torch shenanigans and the way that you can kind of use those into a line to make it do a thing. So when it's powered, it's off, and when it's not powered, it'll run. Now, I left a little bit of leeway here in case we want to extend the signal. I can just throw more repeaters in here, I guess. I suppose I could have maybe tried some things with like hopper clocks or something, but that felt like a little unnecessary, a little overkill for this. So I just spammed a bunch of repeaters down here. Also, yes, I changed the ground we're on. I ran out of stone. I wonder why that is. But this seems to do the trick. Now, all we need to do is put the water in place, and then we can test it out with the water flowing to see if it's ample time with water and then without water, and if we need to add any more to the line. All right, it's a little bit dark, so you might have to look a little closely, but we're gonna go ahead and turn this on. I've got all the water in place, and we are gonna see how we feel about how it's running. I'm gonna get down here a little bit. I don't expect anything to actually be spawning at the moment, but we're just gonna see how it functions. And there it goes. Now it's, okay, that's a lot of trapdoors, and the trapdoors, okay, yep, that's, yep, I was ready for that to happen. I think that, okay, I think we put more repeaters. I think we make it all repeaters, even if there's no delay, and that'll fix that from happening. Anytime the dispenser gets powered, I guess it's flicking the immediate trapdoors, which is probably not a problem. Man, there's a lot of trapdoors going off. Okay, well, one big problem was that I just had it going over a redstone dust over the observer. It didn't click in my mind that I don't need to power the observer because, I don't know if you guys knew this, but it was observing. And so, I've got a bunch of trapdoors flipping here because I accidentally just hit the repeater. The problem is that we were getting two signals rapidly after one another whenever it would go over our center block right here. So it would trigger and then instantly trigger again. And I think that's why we heard so much trapdoor spam, as well as why all of the water keeps getting off sequence. So now I need to go fix this again, get it all on sequence, and then we're going to try it now that I just have a repeater going across. So even though it's not delayed or anything, once the signal crosses, the observer will detect it, send the line down, and only one thing all the way down before it loops back around, and then we can properly see from there. All right, I think we're finally ready to give this a go. Fingers crossed when we flick this lever that it's gonna do what we want it to do. Okay, I'm not hearing trapdoor spam. I'm just gonna sit right here. We got the water. Oh, okay, we're still getting trapdoors. I might need to get rid of the trapdoors, and we're instantly off sequence. The trapdoors have to do something with these getting off sequence, right? Surely? Maybe some of the observers are weird. Well, no, because they're still triggering at some point. It's not like they go off once and then never go again. It's just this weird, like, some are cooperating and some are not. I really don't know what's going on. Okay, I've done a little bit of testing, and I think I've discovered one of the issues, and some of you guys who are more redstone inclined, you might have been yelling this at your monitor the whole time. When we have water, it sends off the signal just once, and that's fine through the observer, but when the water clears, it pulses multiple times frequently. So that is basically, if I'm understanding correctly, when the water's flowing freely and then it gets retracted, it doesn't instantly go. It has multiple levels it goes through. Each one of those is sending a tick through the observer. Now, how we go about changing that is beyond me at the moment. I'm not entirely sure what we do if not observers trying to keep track of everything that goes on. I'm just trying to think what else we could use, or if there's a way to get around the water. That would explain why the water's kind of going on and off and on and off a bunch of times on each layer and setting them off. And that would also be why the trapdoors spam instead of just going off like one flip. So I've been thinking for a little bit. I wonder if we switch around how we have the dispensers and observers. We currently have, I'm on the bottom floor, but we currently have all of the observers in the floor, and then the dispensers are pointing down from the ceiling right onto where the observer's facing. I almost wonder how it would be if we put the dispensers in the floor facing upward, and then we take the observers, and instead of having the observers face where the water is, the observer just faces the dispenser, which only clicks once. So if we're from the top, the signal goes into an observer immediately, which then powers like this air block. Technically, like if this is the bottom of the observer, it would power this area, but there's a dispenser there, and it gets that power to the dispenser, which clicks this off. And then when the cycle goes back through, it triggers it again, so it picks the water up. That kind of thing. Maybe that could be a solution. I'm just wondering if that would work, because we wouldn't have the observer, we wouldn't have the dispenser one block above the ground. It would be flush, and the observer would be where this block is right here. So could that signal travel across that distance right there? I feel like it wouldn't, but like I also feel like it might make sense. We'll give it a go. All right, I'm back up top. I've gone ahead and made the switch on every single floor. We are now going to see how this functions with the switch that we just made. Now we have the dispensers in the floor, and the observers are the elevated block slash what's in the ceiling. So we're waiting for, there's the second cycle right there. Do we feel like this is long enough for the water to be flowing to push anything off of the edges? Yeah, I think so. And long enough of a gap between water for things to spawn. Like, if anything, we could add a couple more ticks. It does look like it's working right, though. Every single floor has water at the same time, or removes at the same time, so we got that working. That seems to be good. And then I think this block right here is our detection. So if I just flip a couple of these to delay it just a little bit more, that's not even that much. We could just go ahead and do this on all of them. And then just have our middle block right there. I don't want to spam that to cause any more problems. I really need to light up some of these areas around here. But I think we've got something that is doing what we needed to do. And I've already seen some creepers spawn and get pushed down in some of the testing and everything. So there's probably already some gunpowder forming. Yes, I have seen a spider or two. It's fine. We'll deal with it. It's not the end of the world. But I think this is good. We got the creeper farm in place. This will work. So this is where I'm going to need your help. How far away do I need to be up in the sky for this farm to work appropriately? We've got 10 layers of spawnable platforms for the creepers, and then they fall, and then they go into the campfires, and then into the hoppers from there. But I know there's probably a prime distance above this in height. I don't know if it's like 20 blocks, 30 blocks, 50 blocks, 100 blocks. I don't know. We're in an ocean right now where we built this kind of man-made island. What is the optimal distance? You'll have to let me know. We got plenty of space, so that's not a concern. We'll figure something out. I think the roof up there is maybe 15 blocks away from world height or something like that. It's pretty far up there, so we've got a lot of room to play with. And best of all, we've set ourselves up nicely to get the sugarcane farm built around the outside of this platform. Well, I'm in the underbelly of our setup right here, trying to do a little bit of redstone wiring. I've got one half of our sugarcane output coming down that tube right there, and then feeding through all of our hoppers into this convoluted mess. The other half is going to shoot out of there, and that's going to be the sugarcane that we just keep as sugarcane. I figured if we split it half and half, That'll give us a good split for what we put into rockets and then what we keep for other stuff. Now, I'm running into a bit of an issue here. The first line that everything runs into is the autocrafter for the paper specifically, and that works simple enough because it's just sugarcane going into the system. Once it gets, you know, all three in there and it's ready to craft, the signal strength is long enough that it will power the autocrafter to send it into the barrel, and then the barrel takes it to the next phase, which is here. Now, here's where the problem is. This one is supposed to take paper from there and some of the gunpowder from the creeper farm. As a matter of fact, it's going to take 2/3 of the hopper's worth of gunpowder out of the creeper farm. This last one's going to go to our just gunpowder profit itself. But the goal is to have gunpowder come through here and then fill one of the spaces so that we have paper and gunpowder, which would make rockets. Now, the problem lies in that if we get enough paper at a time, or enough gunpowder at a time, without getting the other, it's just going to fill both of the spaces with that same item. I don't know how to make it not fill both spaces with the same item. Like, I want to specify that paper goes in one, gunpowder goes in the other, make rocket. And unfortunately, it's not going to be that easy for us. There's not like a clear setting that we can set for that. It's not like we can predetermine what items to put in here. At least if there is, I don't know about it. I tried having like stacks of each of these items in here, and it didn't change the signal strength that the comparator would put out. That was my best guess. So now I'm thinking it's got to get a lot more complicated. Something like having hoppers locked and then unlocking both sides at the same rate or something like that to get it to actually craft the rockets properly to then feed into our storage system there. So I am well and truly stumped on this one, and I am very much going to need your guys' input in the comments down below, especially those of you guys who've done stuff like this before. How can I make this do what I need it to do? Again, I'm trying to do redstone in this world without following tutorials directly, but give me all the information that you got on it, how things work, what kinds of things I might need to introduce to the system to make this possible so that we can have the rockets auto-craft, because I feel like it would be really cool to be able to use the crafter to do that. Fortunately, for now, until we get it figured out, what I can do is just go ahead and break these couple of blocks right here, and then just have everything feed into there. It'll be half gunpowder and half paper, which itself is auto-crafting just fine, so at least there's that. I can just take everything out of there and craft it right away without needing a crafting table. Fortunately, the other side is super easy and simple, just a little hopper chain with a bunch of composters to try and reduce the lag, you know me, barrels and all of that kind of stuff. So really tall tower right here. I don't know if I'm gonna dress up the inside of here, maybe at some point. Could be kind of fun to throw something in here, not too sure. But either way, we've got 3 of the hoppers from the creeper output and kind of also spider output going into here, and we've got 1/2 of our sugarcane setup going into here, and that's of course just raw sugarcane. That's not getting auto-crafted into anything at all, so we can kind of get this combination of all 3 of these. We've got the raw outputs, and then we've got the combo output, which somehow also has string. I guess we're spawning some more spiders than I initially thought. But for now, it'll just be paper and gunpowder, and then if we can figure out how to get the rockets to work properly with the autocrafter without messing up or clogging the system, then we'll have it do that long term. And if I ever need less rockets and more pure gunpowder, I can always just rotate that hopper right there around so that it faces that way, and then we'll put 6 of them on that side and 3 of them on this side, so we can kind of have that change depending. So I'm up here on the sugarcane setup, and I was about to walk you guys through what I built here when it occurred to me that I have put all of this glowstone in this build to look all nice and good and light up the sugarcane, only for it to then also light up the creeper platforms so that nothing is spawning on the bottom couple of layers. You know, just when I think it's not possible to make any more obvious mistakes, I somehow manage to line my creeper farm in glowstone. I sat here and thought about it for a little bit, and I think the solution is tinted glass so that we can have glass next to the farm and see both sides. Not that we'll be in here very frequently, but it looks cool. I want to do it. So tinted glass, but I don't have the amethyst for that. So we're just gonna call these bottom 2 layers a bust for now, and eventually I'll get some amethyst and fix it. So anyway, the farm that we've got set up here, I went for something pretty simple, but I wanted to go for something that felt pretty cool in terms of how it functions. So we've got 2 layers of sugarcane. I kind of split it up into like 5 by 7 by 5, and I did that on each of the sides. 2 of them are orange, 2 of them are cyan to kind of go with our colors. And I still need to finish planting a little bit over on this side right here. But it's pretty simple. The sugarcane will grow up. I didn't want to use too many observers because they're very expensive, so I just did 2 per little pocket of these, I guess. So whenever one of the 2 in front of the dispensers grows, it's going to send all of the pistons across off, and that will be a little handful of sugarcane. That drops down into our ice tracks down here with the water, and that'll come from both layers, of course, as any of them get done. They'll shoot off to here. This side will continue all the way down, and this right here is our rocket output. So these would go towards the autocrafters and get turned into paper. And then these 2 sides over here, same exact process around the corner, and the output down here is just pure sugarcane, not auto-crafted into anything at all, and that's where that would output. So we have kind of one corner of it doing one thing, and the other corner of it doing the other thing. As I was building this, without thinking about light levels or anything, I thought it would be kind of cool to mix in the cyan, the orange, and then a little bit of glowstone as we went, and then have big glass walls here so that both farms were kind of merged into one. I just felt like that would be kind of a creative way to go about it. But of course, we have the light level issue, so I guess I got some amethyst to gather to fix this in the future. Regardless, I'm pretty happy with how this is all coming together. It looks like it's storming outside. That was kind of crazy. We got the creeper spawning. I've had some gunpowder come in. We've had some sugarcane make its way down as well. Still don't know where to build a proper, like, AFK run the machine platform at, so don't forget to let me know about that as well. But I think we accomplished some at least halfway decent redstone today. So I think that's going to be plenty for us to have gotten done today. I'm really, really happy with how the bridge turned out, and the more redstone we do, the more we learn as well. I'll make sure to get some more amethyst to fix up the old tinted glass situation that we got going on in there, and I'll probably do that off camera at some point, so it'll probably just happen in the background. As always, I do want to say massive shout out to everyone who supports over on Patreon. It's thanks to you guys that I can put as much time into this as I do and do this full time, so huge shout out. And if any of you guys want to join up as well to support, you'll get your own tree in this world. There's a link in the description to it. But as always, I appreciate you guys watching this episode. Hope you had a fun time watching this all come together. I'm excited for what we got coming up in the future. And as always, I hope you left today feeling just a little bit inspired.